Let's get the thoughts now of Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He joins us now live from Paris. Marwan, President Trump says he signed this deal. The Strait of Hormuz is open. He's talking up this memorandum. To what extent, though, is he simply claiming credit for putting out a fire that he helped to start?
Oh, there's no doubt about that, right? I mean, it is, as you said, a fire. He started along with, his friend Benjamin Netanyahu back in February 28. It was clearly a war of choice. There was no need for this very specific war because whatever he's going to achieve today was achieved back in 2015 under Obama. And if he didn't walk out or walk away from that deal, Iran wouldn't have been enriching uranium to 60% and more. But be that as it may, here we are today, and he is trying to claim credit, and it's not just because he wants to claim credit for the war. Let's pay attention to the fact he's doing that at the G7, because he wants to create the impression that he is a peacemaker there with the other world leaders that he thinks are in bad need to hear that because of the war in Ukraine. And hence, he wants to create a synergy between what happened in the Gulf with what's happening between Russia and Ukraine to once again champion the idea that he could bring a resolution to the war in Ukraine, something that the Europeans really need him to do.
I want to come back to the nuclear issue, which you were talking about a few moments ago. If the nuclear talks resume more or less exactly where they left off before the U.S. and Israel started to bomb Iran, what was the point of all of this? What did the war actually achieve?
There was no point to it for the United States, but there is a point to it for Israel, notably for Benjamin Netanyahu. But yes, for Israel, because Israel has considered Iran to be its nemesis for some 46, 47 years since the Iranian Revolution. And it has not stopped. And as we all know, Prime Minister Netanyahu claims the credit to be the one who's demonized Iran more than any other and who created the kind of hostility in the United States towards Iran. Not that they needed to be more hostile, but clearly he did that. And he's the one who basically manipulated Trump into this war. But yes, as we all know, it didn't work out very well for him. His original idea that they will create a regime change in Iran, that certainly not only did not work, it backfired. The new regime is not the same like the old regime, but that's not even, a good thing for anyone. And, as we know, the nuclear remains the nuclear, the missile remains the missile, Iran remains a strong ally of a number of proxies in the region and so on and so forth. So it did not work out for the Netanyahu, and that's why he is dying to torpedo this agreement, because for him, the idea that they got into the war and now they couldn't accomplish any of its declared objectives, and we're back to point zero, while Iran has been emboldened to act actively in the Gulf and elsewhere. All right. That does not bode well for good strategy.
Okay, we've got a few days before the signing ceremony in Geneva. Anything could happen in those days. Is there a risk that perhaps Israel could scupper all of this if it decides it has little to lose by acting unilaterally, if it believes that this deal doesn't go far enough?
I can assure you that Israel is not going to act against Iran, but it will attempt to do what it done over the weekend, which is try to create more havoc in Lebanon. I think the idea that it does not want to withdraw from Lebanon, where it invaded, that's a really key point, and the Iranians could not move the Americans on this point, but they're not going to be bombing the Dahi, at least as far as we know for the time being. So the idea of them scuffling the agreement is something very important for him, and I don't think Netanyahu worries about a fallout with Trump, and I'll tell you why briefly. Here, let me summarize 40, 50 years of history for you. In 1981, Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel, had a major fallout with Reagan. In 1991, a decade later, Prime Minister Shamir had a problem with Bush Sr. In 2001, Prime Minister Sharon had a problem with Bush Sr. In 2001, Netanyahu had a problem with Obama. In 2021, there was a fallout between Netanyahu and Biden. And what happened after in each and every fallout over 40 years? Israel was upgraded in the 1980s to a strategic asset, in the 1990s to a champion of the Middle East Pax Americana. In the 2000s, it was the hero of the global war on terror. And then after that, it got some $40 billion from Obama. And as we all know, the United States joined Israel's genocide in Gaza and joined Israel's war on Iran. So every time Israel, lashes out and there's a fallout with the United States, every Israeli prime minister thinks they're going to be not punished for it, they're going to be rewarded for it. There's 50 years of history to show that, to demonstrate that. And I think Netanyahu depends on his minions in the United States, depends on the strong, deep relationship with the United States in Congress, in the White House and elsewhere. And he thinks he probably could risk certain things in the region, like in Syria, like in Lebanon, to blow up the deal.
Marwan.
My sense is he will be taking too much of a risk for himself, because I think Trump needs this deal. The United States wants this deal.
Yep.
So do the Iranians.
Okay.
There are going to be huge difficulties and challenges ahead because the gap between them is big. But I think while it's a torturous process, I think we got on the road now to this torturous process.
Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. Many thanks, Marwan.